And welcome, and thank you for being here today. We are going to spend about the next 45 minutes digging into one of the most exciting, but also sometimes stressful parts of our job as product marketers and go-to-market leaders, and that is, of course, product launches. You probably within your organization have a beautiful product roadmap. You, as product marketers, have probably spent a lot of time on the product messaging. Your respective counterparts across the marketing org maybe even have all of the campaigns ready to go. But I've experienced this many times myself. Oftentimes, at the very last final hour, you get asked for additional customer validation. And sometimes that becomes quite a bit of a scramble at the last minute. So my name is Shauna Simawang. I'm here with Sid, the senior PMM at Beekeeper. And between the two of us, trust me, we have lived this scramble many times over. So we're excited that you're here with us today because we're going to talk about how you can really build a system to really protect and future-proof your customer proof for your product launches. So with that, quick introductions. My name is Shauna Sumawang. My pronouns are she, her. I lead marketing here at Deeto. I've been here for about the last 4 months, and it's been a really exciting transition, having come from leading B2B tech marketing for over 20 years across a variety of tech startups and scale-ups, most recently a company called HighSpot, where I led a lot of our post-acquisition marketing efforts. Here at Deeto, our focus is really helping companies scale authentic customer voices. And so I'm really excited to be here to talk to you guys about this particular topic. And Sid here, as I mentioned, is joining us from Beekeeper. Sid, you want to give a quick introduction to yourself?
Sure, it's a hard intro to follow up on, but sure. I'm Sid Khaitan. I'm a senior product marketing manager at Beekeeper by Lumaps. We actually just merged with the company Lumaps, so that's hence the long name. But I've been here for around 2.5 years, focused on our operations suite. So, of course, lots of moving pieces when it comes to roadmap and also getting customer validation, customer adoption. So our journey with Deeto started it's almost been a year now, at least 3.5 quarters, and it's been really good. So I'm really excited to share some of what we've been working on and progress we've made. Yeah,
Amazing. And again, Sid, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it and excited to talk through kind of your story and your experience.
let's do it.
All right, so the plan for today, everyone, we're going to get started with what I call kind of the launch dilemma, which is why proof is always the part we're chasing. Then we'll talk through the launch gap, which is the real reason this keeps happening. From there, I'll walk you through pretty quickly 5 simple plays that you can use to close that gap. And Sid, hopefully I can count on you to chime in along the way, just with your real world perspective. After that, Sid and I will actually kind of go through a live Q&A, so I can kind of have him share again his experiences and how he's brought this to life at Beekeeper himself. We will open it up for a few audience questions. Hopefully, we have enough time to at least take a handful or so, and then we'll wrap up. So that's how we'll plan on spending the 45 minutes that we have together today. So again, starting with sort of the launch dilemma. I think for most of us, launches are some of the most high pressure moments in our job. The leadership team is watching it closely. Your sales team is waiting because it's how they're going to drive even more revenue out of their deals. And your competitors are probably also paying attention. And I know, again, I've lived this time and time again at my previous company. Our 2 big launch moments of the year were also anchored in our customer user conferences that we would host to bring thousands of our customers together to hear the latest innovation. And oftentimes we still end up missing sort of making sure that we have customer validation ready to go, or maybe sometimes there are shifts, like that ever happens in what the product is actually launching, and we're caught kind of off guard trying to find last minute validation that we didn't necessarily expect to have to find. And so I don't know about you, but in the past, I often had to scramble. I'd have to reuse old quotes or grab some of our generic case studies, or I'd be scrambling to Slack account teams to see if they have any sort of testimonial or quote from their customer that we might be able to drop in into the press release. And so if anyone in the audience has felt this or if this resonates with you, definitely let us know. You are in good company. I think we've all been here before, and it's not about poor planning. It is simply just a mismatch between candidly the speed of your roadmap and maybe the readiness of your proof. And that's sort of the dilemma that we're here to talk about today. So why does this keep happening? Oftentimes, and I've been guilty of this many times before, but candidly, oftentimes customer proof is treated a little bit like an afterthought. It's the thing that we kind of tack on at the end if we have time to do it. But I think it's important to remember, and we'll talk about this in the 5 tips, customers are not on your timeline. Your beta customers, they move on after helping you with a beta. So if you don't get feedback at that point in time, you've waited too long. Quotes take a really long time to secure. And as we all know, stories can get stuck in endless approval cycles. And so you end up with a launch where the product is ready and the messaging is ready, but your customer proof might be lagging behind. And that's really where you can lose momentum and create a scramble that maybe you don't want to be going through. And it's probably not that you're short on good stories. I'm sure your customers have them. I'm sure the customers that participated in the beta programs were really excited about what they got to experience with your latest innovation. And so really what you're missing is a system to capture and activate those stories when you need them. And so this checklist is kind of like a gut checklist just to kind of get a sense for as you're thinking about your next launch, do you already have fresh customer quotes tied to it? If your sales team asked you for proof upon launch, do you know exactly what you provide them? And has your messaging been validated by real users and real customers? So I'd encourage you to kind of use this as a way to kind of just pulse check whether or not you are ready for your next big launch moment. So how do we fix it? And the good news is that's what we're here to talk about today. We have some practical tips and tricks and ways of thinking about building proof into the rhythm of kind of your ever ongoing launches that you might have inside of your organization at whatever cadence you guys launch. So like I said, I'll share 5 of them. I'm going to run through them relatively quickly. Again, Sid, would love for you to chime in and kind of share again, kind of your real world perspective on some of these as well. So the first play that we have up is to make proof a deliverable from the start. Again, to the point of kind of not tacking it on as an afterthought. If you have enough time, really put it in your initial launch brief. Decide how many stories you want, what validation you need, which beta quotes you need to collect, and who owns collecting all of these pieces. I think when you ensure that kind of your proof runs in parallel with your roadmap, the launch just gets a lot sharper and messaging moves faster and sales has what they need to sell this new innovation. So Sid, I'd love to hear from you. How have you built proof into your launch goals at Beekeeper?
Yeah, absolutely. I see metrics here, and I think that was the most important, especially when it came to aligning with my counterpart, our product team. And it was like we started to come up with this idea that, hey, for any launch, like let's come up with this goal of having at least 2, 3 customer stories that we can either throw on a slide if we're going to do some enablement or have going into the launch when we launch externally as well. So I think just like being accountable to that all of a sudden the tactics came into place. And of course, Deeto became like a great channel to facilitate that. But it used to be, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, it used to be that I had to track down CSMs, like see what's going on and kind of, do this kind of triage with our product team. Whereas now it just became a lot easier. And I feel like in previous roles as well, this is something that was really tricky because either the messaging was being made in a vacuum, and either it was through hearsay from what I'm hearing from the actual CSM versus actually just being able to hear it from the customer's mouth. So I think, yeah, making it part of the plan is essential. And to me, the easiest way to do that is having some sort of metrics, having a few line items in your project to remind yourself that this is important and it needs to happen before launch, like weeks before launch at least.
I love that advice. That is fantastic advice. Make it part of the core metrics of your product launch success. That's phenomenal. The next play is, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but it is all about timing. I think that the best customer evidence, irregardless of launch, is when the experience is fresh and top of mind for your customer. Not just top of mind for you, but top of mind for your customer. And if you wait months and then you go back to your customer and you ask them for that feedback or those insights, oftentimes, it might be a little fuzzy or it might not be even as enthusiastic as it was in that moment. And so it's almost like you're trying to like retrofit proof. So definitely instead of reaching out, well, the when it's convenient for you, reach out. Well, it's still really relevant for the customer, and the customer's kind of in that moment. Ask them what changed, what surprised them, what they would tell a peer about it. Maybe even two or three sentences captured right then and there. That can be a lot more powerful and valuable than a maybe a corporate polished paragraph that maybe you've you know written for them a few months later. Sid, I'd love to understand what's changed for you now that you collect proof earlier instead of trying to retrofit it after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, it's like often the launch is, either V1 or V2 of that first product, right? So it's like what the customer tells you before when you're in early access, when you're in that beta mode, is going to dictate your messaging and also what that next version of your product looks like. So having that early and then coming back to the product team once again with like real insight into how customers are receiving this new feature, I think helps you really define the scope going forward and think about how the evolution of this feature or product is going to look like. So to me, it's like it just makes you a much more strategic partner, to be honest, with that team with the product team. And then also in terms of like being able to just show something that's more authentic, like you were saying, instead of like a polished corporate story, this becomes more so, hey, I did have this hiccup when I was trying to set up this feature, but I learned this as a result. And like to me, those are super important because that also goes down to like how we think about implementation support. Are we giving them the right documentation so that this customer can adopt this feature easily? I think those kinds of insights like have to come at this stage instead of being retrofitted. So, yeah, I think it's pretty important.
Absolutely. All right, on to our third play. And this is all about packaging. So again, I recognize it varies organization by organization, but I have been guilty of this in the past as well, where a lot of my customer proof is maybe sitting in a Google Doc somewhere or a shared drive, and it's not really bundled up and packaged in a way that people across your organization can use it and have it really kind of resonate with your buyers and potentially your other customers. Um, and oftentimes it's also kind of buried in a lot of other evidence. I don't know if you guys have had like master sales and customer presentations where there's like maybe a slide in the appendix that the reps can pull up. And I think it's really important, especially when it comes to launch, that you are showcasing and featuring the short quotes, maybe the visuals, the clips, and that you're able to tag it by persona, industry, maybe the new kind of product capabilities that you're trying to showcase in the launch, because that is how you give sales really clear guidance on when and how to use what. So when proof is packaged, almost like the way that you package your product, it will get used. And if not, it'll ultimately will essentially just become shelfware. Sid, I know that you've been really good about enabling your sales team. Can you share how you've packaged proof so it's actually used?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's super important to make this like self-service. Like I noticed when I had joined Beekeeper, actually, like there's of course all these raving customers that were open to sharing their story, but either it was like trapped in some old deck or like just scattered across different ones. And that gets very tricky, especially when you're a global company and you do need to tag them in terms of these are US customers, these are EMEA customers. And then also because we serve a broad kind of array of industries and personas. So I think that was critical for us, like having these tags somewhere where the reps and CS team know where to go and find them. And even like what type of story, because some of these were renewal stories, some of these were, early wins, and we had an IT buyer that was involved. Like being able to package and find those little like nuanced stories that you need for the next sales conversation, I think really made a difference. And what I noticed is like it no longer had to live in my head. It was like, and not even just my head, it was me and our CRO, right? Like we were always listening, we were always kind of listening in on the calls and had these stories. And I noticed when we would enter sales conversations, it would be like, oh yeah, did you know that customer X did it this way? And we found that a lot of reps were struggling to do that. But as we started to help them build this muscle, hey, go to Deeto, find the story. You can filter down to the specific one you're looking for. I think like reps started to use it more and more. And I think that really did improve our win rates because now they were bringing proof into the conversation. They weren't just saying, hey, we think you should implement this use case because I think so. It's more so that, hey, a customer just like you is doing this exact thing, wouldn't you like to try it out? So yeah, I think like I really like the sentiment about like package proof like a product because that's really what it is. You take this kind of vast array of stories and turn them into something that's bite-sized and usable for the rep because at the end of the day, their lives are difficult too. They can't go and sift through thousands of slides. Like we have to make it very easy and in the moment for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that advice. All right. Our fourth play is to, and I know this sounds logical, but I can't tell you how many times I would often miss this step. It's to test your messaging before launch. I know a lot of us get busy and oftentimes we're doing a phenomenal job really polishing it up internally. And we get it signed off by leadership and then sometimes we ship it without ever checking with our customers if it resonates or lands. And I think that that is a huge misstep because it doesn't take much. You can share a version or two with a handful of your customers and ask them like what resonates, what feels unclear. And those quick checks can actually save you, I think, quite a lot in wasted time and campaign dollars. And it will give you and your teams the confidence that you're actually leading with the language that your audience believes. Sid, I'd love for your perspective on how you've involved customers as, kind of advisors when testing messaging.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, especially when it comes to Dito, like, I don't know if anyone agrees with this, but I think of it as like a digital mini customer advisory board. And what I mean by that is like you can go and ask these types of questions because these are customers that have raised their hand and said, hey, I'd like to participate in this kind of stuff. So being able to just be very kind of transparent and say, hey, this is how I'm thinking about launching this. Does this kind of resonate? I think is super important. And honestly, sometimes I go even one layer back and just ask them, what was your problem before you had, you had this feature in your hand, or like what were some of the benefits that you saw right away, like you have right here. I think like being able to lead with that instead of what I call ivory tower marketing, where you're kind of just like making things up, I think just makes it a much stronger conversation. And of course, as we mentioned, like with sales enablement, it's super important that they have this level of proof, because seeing is believing. And like instead of me having to rely on my own gut or something like that, I can also weave in actual customer proof. So, yeah, I think just having that kind of forum and using it wisely, like, talk to your customers and get the most out of 2 or 3 questions. It doesn't need to be an overbearing survey. I think really sets me up for success. And we'll probably talk about this in a bit, but like the alternative was me taking hundreds of customer calls, which is great, but there also needs to be kind of an asynchronous way to like manage some of this and yeah, scale it fast.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're already juggling enough in the product marketing world. So this is yet another thing that if you can scale it, make it simple, you definitely should. All right, last play, and then again we'll transition after this to an open Q&A with Sid and go through again kind of his journey. But the last one is kind of about making sure that you're getting this proof into the hands of your reps in the moments that they need it. And so again, I think we put a lot of effort. Like I said, I had to build entire user conferences around our fall launch moment at my previous company. And we put so much blood, sweat, and tears into making that launch moment just absolutely amazing. And then we forget that our reps still have to sell that product 3 months, 6 months, 9 months later down the road. And I don't know about your reps, but I know mine historically don't want to have to be digging back through decks or back through their email threads or Slack threads to kind of find where was that launch evidence that I was given a long time ago, 3, 6 months ago. They need something that they can drop into an email or a live sales presentation that they're giving like right in that moment. And so it's important that you are making sure that your system is scaling that evidence in real time where your reps are working in the workflows that they're comfortable operating in, and that it is actually helping them find that evidence relatively quickly because that evidence will give them confidence to sell the product, and it'll also help accelerate the sales velocity. There's a lot of evidence around how customer proof really improves the sales cycle. So definitely make sure that as you're thinking about that, how are you making sure that your reps have at their fingertips that proof, the relevant proof to the deal that they're working, and maybe it's a case study, maybe it's a testimonial, maybe it's a video clip. Maybe it's even a direct connection with a customer on a reference call. And so, how do you make sure that your customer or your sales team, sorry, have those customers kind of right at their fingertips? Sid, how are you making sure that your sales teams, even post-launch, have the proof that they need?
Yeah, I mean, Shauna, if it's not like the way I think of it, if it's not in the flow of work, they're just not going to do it for many reasons, right? Once again, they're busy, they have 100 other things they're juggling as well. So, however, like easy and kind of quick I can make it for them, I try to. And I think email templates is a good one. Often I put them into a few slides or like take screenshots, stuff like that. So it's like they just have a slide or two if they're industry specific. Hey, I'm going to surface these 3 or 4 customer stories because I know they drive the most impact. The other piece, as you were kind of alluding to, is this customer reference idea. I think showing up in the sales cycle with a prospect and saying, hey, before you sign the deal, by the way, I'm happy to connect you with one of our happy customers. I think adds just like a whole new layer and like competitive differentiator where now you have something that's going to sweeten the deal and it becomes a lever that the sales reps can kind of like, yeah, use to their advantage. So I think like, yeah, making it very easy for them to incorporate this into their different stages of a deal makes it much more likely that they're going to use it. And instead of using those stale stories, they can really take the time to tailor whatever does exist, the gold nuggets that are there, and surface them to the customer. Because in the absence of that, they're once again just like pasting together slides from different places from years ago.
Absolutely. Experienced that many, many times. So with that, again, these five plays, I mean, frameworks are only useful if they're used in the real world. So I want to spend the rest of the time that we have together really talking through, the story at Beekeeper. So, Sid, I'm going to flip this into a little bit more of an interview so everyone can kind of hear your journey firsthand. But again, to our audience, we'll try to save a little bit of time for a question or two towards the end. So if you do have questions for Sid, please drop them in the Q&A panel in the Zoom window, and we'll reserve a little bit of time for that as well. But Sid, I would love to just kind of start at the beginning. What challenges did your PMM team face when it came to scaling customer proof?
Yeah, so I feel like I do this at every company I enter, but like around 2 years ago when I started, I was like, hey, we need more customer proof. So I kind of started this initiative of let's just go interview customers. And that meant, you know, tracking down the right CSM, getting legal approval, scheduling an intro call, scheduling a second call, working with the brand and content team to like cut together clips, turning that into some sort of content piece. And I must have done this at least like 10, 15 times. And of course, I think every product marketer should be doing that, at some level. But to do it at that, like the frequency that I was doing it, it started to get pretty challenging, especially as I had other projects going on. So that's when we started looking for something like Deeto. And it was a pretty easy decision for us to make because first of all was killing the like manual work of doing all of that, getting the legal approval, scheduling all these different times to meet and all that other stuff. Bringing that all into like an asynchronous place where we can kind of get that base layer of collecting customer stories and surfacing them to our sales team done. That was like step one and checkbox one. But what we got with it was like much more than that, right? So we realized we could use this for references. We realized we could use this for referrals. And that's some of the stuff we've like started to implement. I think that's where I was like, that's where the aha moment was for me, the light bulb moment, because I was like, all right, this is going to solve my current problem and give me some time back in the day. But it's also going to be a huge, like, kind of, I don't know, like a helpful piece to the sales team, which I didn't really anticipate, right? I thought I would still have to, in some way, shape, or form, put everything into a spreadsheet and then tag it myself and then share it with the sales team. Whereas this was kind of done for you. So I think like, yeah, it's been a 9-month journey, but like we've seen some really good stories come in, and I really do doubt I could pull all those together without, yeah, overextending myself, basically.
I'd love to give the audience some examples. How did this help you go about kind of reducing some of that manual lift and essentially freeing you up to spend more time on the strategy?
Yeah, so part of like our playbook when we launched Deeto was getting our CSMs and account managers to start inviting customers into the platform. So since they were now kind of taking that, all I had to do was enable them with the right email templates, all of that. They would, be able to invite these customers in. So we were just collecting kind of customer proof passively, right? I didn't have to really do anything or like continue to do more work in order to do that. Additionally, in the past, it was like I would take an interview and then send like some sort of thank you gift. Whereas with Dito, that's all just taken care of. And it's like the second a customer onboards, leaves some of their reviews and contributions, they get rewarded for it. And I don't have to worry about, okay, let me go manually send this to someone and like add another touch. Even once we tried to automate some of that, it was just more of a pain. Whereas now we could be more like campaign oriented and be more just like, yeah, more focused on making sure that we're asking the right questions and actually getting the right information out, and building it into our playbook of even like launches and early access. Because without that, we wouldn't really be able to do it, right? I have to be able to go talk to one or two customers, and that's just another launch item that becomes hard to execute on if you're trying to push something, in the next few weeks.
Absolutely. What impact would you say creating a centralized library proof has on sales and even the rest of the go-to-market teams?
Yeah, I think from a marketing standpoint, we're still trying to get to that adoption where people are like, instead of going to Sid, they need to go to Deeto. But it is happening. And like just I think yesterday I got a chat message from my manager actually, and she's like, "Oh my God, the content team is like floored now that they spend more time in there." And I just see a screenshot that's like, "I love Deeto." So I think like that is to me the best proof. Like people are going in there anytime they have a new campaign, they're thinking, hey, before I go launch this, before I write up all the campaign copy and the homepage, whether that's for ABM or just something more broad, they're thinking, let's go to Deeto and pull a few of those stories first. And I think before that had to either happen in a spreadsheet or once again, some sort of slides. Whereas now it's kind of like at their fingertips and they can just like click a link and find what they need and then kind of go on with their day. Um, and then for our sales team as well, I mean, really similar concept, except now they also have this other tool in their back pocket of customer references and being able to kind of champion that idea that hey, customer proof is like essential. And if you're a new prospect, you almost like should demand that from anyone else you're evaluating too. And being the first to be able to provide that and kind of offer that up, I think just sets us apart in the sales cycle. And for sales teams, aside from just I guess the feature specific stuff of being able to go into the platform, I think it just adds this like layer of confidence where they're like, yeah, I know I can go reference a customer story and it's going to make me show up as an expert in this sales call instead of just kind of pitching people stuff they might not need. Um, so I think those have really helped. As I mentioned, because we are more industry agnostic and we serve such a broad base, it's very important that we're able to get that focused very quickly. And I think that's what Dito has really made the difference for.
Awesome. What advice would you maybe give to other PMMs who are trying to embed customer voice into how they launch?
I think there's two parts to it. One is like as a whatever, as I started in product marketing, I realized that this is important. You got to talk to customers, right? Like instead of and sometimes people don't tell you this. It's just like you have to go learn and do it on your own. But yeah, you have to talk to a lot of customers. However, at a certain point, right, as I was mentioning, there just comes a time and place where you can't continue to go on doing all of this manually on your own. So like we even built programs in place where we had other product marketers doing the same process. But even then, as you continue to scale, like you don't want to become the bottleneck to having more customer proof in your organization. So that's why I think it is like useful to consider a tool like Dito. And in terms of amplifying customer voice, I think like there's this tricky time right now where customer marketing is part of the equation as well. And I think we should always look at that function as like teammates or like almost very hand in hand. So it's not up to customer marketing to find all the proof on their own, like, or find ways to use it. Product marketing, I think, should be super involved in not only being able to acquire that because we're close to the sellers, we're close to the CS team, product, of course, as well, but also being able to distribute that because there's not the only distribution channel isn't just marketing and sales. It's also within your product. We've used it for our product-led growth motions. Like there's just a lot of opportunity if you think a little bit outside the box as well.
I love that. I love that. Last question for you, Sid, and this is the last of the preset questions. I see some audience questions have already come in. Again, I'm going to open it up for audience Q&A. So if you have something for Sid, do drop it into the Q&A section, and we'll open that up in just a minute. But last question from my side. What's next for customer evidence at Beekeeper?
Yeah, so we've built the base. We have around 68 advocates in Dito, last time I checked, which is like pretty amazing if you consider implementation, all the different steps. And now it's really about how do we reward these customers and give them new experiences. So we've thought through, for example, when we have events, having them be the first to give event feedback, creating like new, more fun campaigns to get them in the door, whether that's like, I don't know, answer these few questions we have about our product roadmap and receive this, I don't know, $200 gift card to buy some cool shoes or something like that. So being more campaign centric and having like an always on motion instead of being reactive. And then the other is now that the base is built, considering it as a growth lever for getting more referrals. Because what we noticed is the same thing. A lot of our customers are more than willing to not only share a good story, but also refer. And in our business, it's super important. The only kind of barrier to that is usually just the manual processes required to help them kind of execute on that part, and then also internally be able to manage those complexities. But yeah, we're really excited to do some of that in Deeto as well because it's integrated with their Salesforce, integrated with their HubSpot. Like we don't have to go outside the systems we already use to make it work. So
Amazing. Thank you again, Sid, so much for kind of sharing your journey, anyways. Really appreciate it. Like I said, we already have a couple questions that have come through. I'm going to try to get through as many of them as we can, but also conscious of time. So first question. So thank you for submitting it. Everyone, in theory, is on board and enthusiastic when it comes to collecting customer proof. But when push comes to shove, launch timelines are more critical to product than being gated by customer references and evidence. How have you found the best way to work with product to get customer proof as an essential thou shall not pass item for launch? This is a great question. So,
that is a great question, Doug. So um, I like to think of it instead of thou shalt not pass, it's more of like a exit criteria, right? For us to enter the next phase. Like it's not like your launch is at risk if you don't do this, but that is kind of how I position it, I guess, in terms of it's like, hey, product team, like we're going to launch this feature, but if we don't have customer proof, sales is not going to be as enthusiastic to sell it. They won't be able to believe it because this is a unproven feature. Like I like to think of it as, in product terms, it's an untested assumption that customers are going to like this feature. So I think going to them and saying, hey, do you really want to launch this without having some sort of proof that our sales team can buy into, that our marketing team can buy into, and really understand the use case behind the feature? Because often what we do before features launch, we do our discovery calls, we understand the problem. We have a prototype and maybe we have a very closed beta, but aside from that, we don't really have, the 5, 10 customers that are going to give us feedback. That information usually lives in our CSM's heads. So it's like the more and more we can say, hey, let's just capture that information. It's not going to take a lot of time and it's only going to aid in the second version of this product. It's only going to aid in the launch process. I think it really just helps you show up as a partner and just challenge their thinking, right? Because they want to move fast and usually their metrics are also related to adoption. So if you think of it that way, it's like, hey, what better way to get more adoption than customer proof?
absolutely. And next question. So, this organization has a solution where corporations are often reluctant to speak up when they get great value from it. Are anonymous customer proof pieces still powerful? And if so, does Deeto support its collection?
Yeah, so definitely hear you on that. We have the same issue. It's not always easy. It's like about setting expectations, making sure the right people are looped in. So I will just say like that is forever a challenge, I think. And like, the higher up you go in the enterprise, you'll have this issue. I found that anonymous still works pretty well because, and I guess it really depends on the use case, because when it comes to like the sales team, it's very easy for them to say, hey, yeah, we have another mid-market manufacturer with 500 employees that is facing the same problems as you. So I think it works in the sales cycle if it's still surfaced in a meaningful way. For other use cases, of course, a little less tangible, right? When you don't have a fancy logo or someone you can stick on a slide. But it kind of goes back to the idea that like sometimes uh I don't know, I guess more is more because if you have a lot of these stories, what I've started to do is turn those into data points. So it's like we'll ask as part of our Dito onboarding, how much time are you saving? What's the ROI you're getting? And if you take all of those in aggregate and then start to come up with like a percentage point, now you have like a data point you can use instead. So I think like it's just about how you anonymize and how you use the information. Because once it's aggregated, it becomes powerful. Hey, 100 of our customers said they save 30% every year they use Beekeeper.
Absolutely. And I've also just I'll chime in as well. I have found that especially nowadays, anonymized proof actually is becoming more powerful and definitely used in industries where maybe there's a little bit more stringent rules around what can be disclosed. But the other thing I found is even in those scenarios, oftentimes those customers are willing to do kind of more private one-to-one references. So even if they can't give you a public story, they might be willing to raise their hand to take a few, sales reference calls if needed and can disclose the story in that way. So that's another way to leverage those great stories. Um, Okay, I know we're almost at time. So last question, and Sid, it did come in from an anonymous attendee, but I promise you it wasn't me. How did you go about getting internal buy-in and budget to invest in a product like Deeto? Any tips? Promise, this one did not come from me.
Now, I mean, this is the million-dollar question. So I think I have a pretty good answer to this when I reflect back on like our journey. I always say this, like the program needs to come before the product. So for us, it was really building the muscle of generating customer stories. And once we were able to kind of get the CRO's attention, get our chief customer officer's attention that, hey, we do need all this proof. And when we collect it, like the impact is very clear, right? Sales teams are excited. They see it in the comments every time we publish a new customer story. They see it in the marketing materials. They start to use it. Now you have the buy-in from the CRO. And as we know, like that, of course, as product marketers, that is often one of the best check marks is like when we try to buy like competitive intel solutions, like it's the same thing, right? Once they see the value, they very much are like, yeah, we probably do need a product for that because that's how we pitched it that, hey, we have these 10 customer stories that, Sid and team created, but in order to get to 50, we're going to need to scale this practice. And that's when we decided to start looking. And then from there, we had our whole exec team review it. It just made sense from a cost benefit analysis standpoint. So yeah, I'd say start with the program, have some sort of key like metrics you plan to be measured on and how those translate into kind of ROI on the investment. And I found that it was even given like the additional budget scrutiny you see nowadays, I found that it was a pretty seamless process.
Amazing. Thank you for that advice, Sid. All right, with that, we are at time. So just a quick recap on hopefully the big key takeaways for everyone in the audience. Make proof part of the plan from the onset, including in those KPIs. Measure when the experience is fresh for your customer. Package it so it actually gets used. Test your messaging before you launch and deliver proof straight to the front lines. I think if you can do those 5 things, your launches will not only be faster, but a lot more credible and a lot more impactful. So thank you again so much for joining us. Sid, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate it and hope everyone has a fantastic day. Thank you so much again.